On June 26, 2025, at approximately 1:30 a.m., a fire broke out at a multi-unit apartment building located at 5222 West North Avenue in Chicago's Arson neighborhood. The fire originated from multiple ignition points and spread rapidly throughout the structure. First responders arrived on the scene and began evacuating residents. 4 individuals were later pronounced dead. The victims were identified as Brad Cummings, 76, Regina Henry, 32, who was 3 months pregnant, her 5-year-old son, Jayceon Henry, and her 28-year-old sister, Destiny Henry. One additional child, Kyle Henry, was transported to the hospital in critical condition. Several other residents sustained injuries or were displaced. Preliminary investigations by the Chicago Fire Department and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives concluded the fire was intentionally set. Accelerants were found at the scene. Surveillance footage from nearby locations showed a male individual entering the property shortly before the fire started. The suspect was observed carrying a plastic container and wearing dark clothing. Detectives recovered digital evidence, including phone location data and text messages, linking one individual to the scene and time frame. That individual was located and taken into custody on July 9, 2025, in Springfield, Illinois. He was charged with multiple counts, including first-degree murder, aggravated arson, and attempted murder.
The man who investigators say allegedly and intentionally started this fire will face a judge just hours from now. 23-year-old Lontray Clark is facing first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, and other charges. Chicago police, with help from ATF officials, arrested Clark just days ago in Springfield. That fire erupted on West North Avenue in North Laramie on the west side on June 26th, prompting a sizable response. A 5-year-old boy and his mother were among 4 people killed. Reverend George Smith Jr., who is related to 3 of the victims, says he's struggling to understand how someone could do this.
The motive, method, and sequence of events leading up to the fire are now part of the official record. Investigators are continuing to review all evidence, including surveillance, witness testimony, and forensic materials. This case is currently under active prosecution in Cook County. The outcome of the trial will determine legal accountability for the 4 confirmed deaths. Additional details will be revealed through court proceedings and public records. Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Brad Cummings was a fixture in the Austin neighborhood for decades. As the editor of The Voice, a long-running community newspaper, he dedicated his life to covering local issues, amplifying marginalized voices, and preserving the cultural identity of Chicago's West Side. Cummings was well known among neighborhood leaders, pastors, and local activists. He lived alone in the 24-unit apartment building at 5222 West North Avenue, where he had resided for more than 10 years. His proximity to residents and first-hand understanding of community struggles made him a trusted figure. At the time of his death, he was still actively working and publishing. Regina Henry was a mother of 1 and was expecting another. She was 3 months pregnant when she died in the fire. She lived in the same apartment building along with her sister and young son, Jayceon. Friends and family describe her as a responsible, nurturing individual who frequently took on caregiving duties for other family members. She worked in a local retail store and played a central role in the day-to-day needs of her family. Regina had no known conflicts or criminal history and was not publicly known beyond her circle. She was not the target of any threats, according to relatives, and lived a relatively quiet life centered around her home and children. Destiny Henry, Regina's younger sister, also lived in the building. She was the mother of 4-year-old Kyle Henry, who survived the fire. When the fire broke out, Destiny successfully evacuated but returned into flames to search for her son, not realizing he had already escaped with help. She never made it back out. Destiny's act of re-entering the building is what ultimately led to her death. Family members describe her as deeply loyal and self-sacrificing, someone who put others' needs before her own. Destiny had lived in the neighborhood for most of her life and was known locally for being supportive and attentive to her community. Jayceon Henry was Regina's son. He was well-liked by neighbors who frequently saw him playing in the courtyard outside the building. His sudden death left a major emotional void for the family and the community. Jayceon was in the apartment when the fire started and did not survive. He had no connection to the crime other than proximity. As a minor and victim, his life represents the collateral devastation inflicted by the actions of the alleged arsonist. The fire occurred at 5222 West North Avenue, a courtyard-style residential building located in the Austin neighborhood of Chicago. The structure was a 3-story brick building containing 24 apartment units. Like many buildings in Austin, it housed a mix of elderly tenants, single-parent families, and working-class residents. Each unit had access to a central courtyard and interior stairwells. The building had no sprinkler system, a fact later noted by investigators and city officials. Security cameras were positioned outside and at select hallway locations, which later provided evidence of movements around the time of the fire. Austin is one of Chicago's largest neighborhoods and has long been a hub for Black families and cultural activity. Despite economic challenges, the neighborhood is known for tight-knit social networks, active church communities, and a tradition of grassroots organizing. The apartment complex at 5222 West North Avenue was considered typical for the area, densely populated and relatively affordable. The Voice, the newspaper edited by Brad Cummings, operated from the same neighborhood and played a critical role in disseminating local information. It frequently reported on housing conditions, crime trends, and community improvement initiatives. The chain of events leading to the fire began with dispute involving the alleged arsonist, identified as 23-year-old Lontray Clark. He reportedly became upset after receiving a photo via social media. The image showed his ex-girlfriend posing with another man, someone believed to be Clark's friend. In the hours after receiving the photo, Clark's behavior escalated. Surveillance footage and later phone records show that Clark began purchasing items consistent with preparing for arson. He visited a gas station and filled a container with gasoline. He also acquired a lighter and wore black clothing, a hooded sweatshirt, and gloves. These purchases were made shortly after midnight. At approximately 12:20 a.m., Clark was recorded on surveillance cameras filling a container, believed to be an antifreeze jug, with fuel at a nearby gas station. He returned to his vehicle and proceeded toward the apartment complex. By around 1:10 a.m., cameras near the building captured Clark walking toward a location, carrying a container. By 1:20 to 1:25 a.m., the fire was ignited at multiple points within the complex, including the central stairwell and a section of courtyard. Witnesses later told investigators they heard popping sounds resembling gunfire. Flames quickly spread throughout the building. The structure, made of older materials and lacking updated fire suppression systems, became fully engulfed within minutes. Some residents jumped from windows, while others used fire escapes. Emergency calls began flooding in around 1:30 a.m. By the time the fire department arrived, the blaze had overtaken most of the upper floors. First responders arrived quickly and were able to rescue several tenants. Among them was 4-year-old Kyle Henry, who was found unconscious and was immediately transported to a local hospital in critical condition. Firefighters conducted a floor-by-floor search, and by the early morning hours, they had recovered 3 bodies: Brad Cummings, Regina Henry, and Jayceon Henry. Destiny Henry's remains were found later under heavy debris. She had apparently collapsed inside the building after re-entering during the evacuation. Investigators immediately suspected arson due to the speed of the blaze and the presence of accelerants. Evidence collected included the remains of the fuel container, burned clothing consistent with Clark's appearance in surveillance footage, and text messages indicating his motive. Federal and local investigators confirmed early on that the deadly fire at 5222 West North Avenue in the Arson neighborhood of Chicago was not accidental. Within hours of extinguishing the flames that engulfed a 3-story apartment building on June 26, 2025, fire personnel detected strong indicators of arson. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, conducted a scene analysis alongside the Chicago Fire Department and identified the use of an accelerant, specifically gasoline, at multiple locations throughout the complex. Chemical traces of gasoline were found in stairwells and the central courtyard, both key pathways for residents to escape. Investigators believe the strategic placement of accelerants was intended to block all possible exits, thereby maximizing harm. Fire trajectory analysis and witness testimony supported the conclusion that the fire was deliberately set to trap residents inside. Forensic mapping of the burn patterns confirmed that the ignition points were intentionally selected for their ability to cut off escape routes. The simultaneous ignition at these points indicated pre-planned coordination, not a spontaneous act. In addition to evidence of accelerants, the investigation revealed that the building lacked sufficient fire suppression systems. There were no sprinklers in the stairwells and only one fire alarm on the main floor, which failed to alert all residents. Several families inside the complex reported they only became aware of the fire once smoke had entered their apartments. This structural vulnerability contributed significantly to the high number of fatalities and injuries. Surveillance footage obtained from a nearby business played a central role in identifying the prime suspect. The video shows an individual wearing black clothing, a face covering, and gloves approaching the apartment complex at approximately 1:10 a.m. The individual was seen carrying a red plastic container believed to contain gasoline. Earlier footage from a gas station just blocks away captured the same individual purchasing gasoline and a lighter using cash. Further digital evidence came from the suspect's mobile device. GPS tracking and cell tower data placed the suspect near the building during the fire. Additionally, a voice recording recovered from the device allegedly captured the suspect admitting to setting the fire. According to prosecutors, the recording includes a statement, "I lit the house on fire. They deserved it." Text messages and social media posts further reinforced the theory of premeditation. Days before the incident, the suspect exchanged messages with an ex-girlfriend believed to be one of the intended targets inside the building, indicating anger and jealousy after seeing her with another man. One text, sent less than 24 hours before the fire, read, "You'll see what happens when you cross me." A Snapchat video, deleted but later recovered from the device, showed the suspect filming a gas can in the trunk of his car with the caption, "Time to end this." Investigators determined the timestamp aligned with the evening prior to the attack. The combination of physical surveillance, digital tracking, and self-recorded admissions formed a complete evidentiary trail tying the suspect to the arson. Lontray Clark became the primary suspect in the arson investigation within 48 hours of the fire. Known by the nickname Ree, Clark had previously dated one of the female victims inside the apartment building. Family members reported that the relationship had ended months prior, but that Clark had continued to send threatening messages and express resentment over the woman's new relationship. After his name surfaced in the investigation, Clark reportedly fled the Chicago area. Law enforcement, working in coordination with U.S. Marshals and the Illinois State Police, located Clark in Springfield, Illinois. He was arrested without incident on July 9, 2025, following a brief surveillance operation at a residence where he was reportedly hiding out.
Lontray Clark remains behind bars tonight after a Cook County judge determines that he is a danger to the community. Investigators say the 23-year-old became enraged and intentionally set fire to his friend's apartment after learning that that friend may have started dating his ex-girlfriend.
We're sticking close together. It's a day-by-day process.
George Smith says his family can finally begin their journey for justice now that the man accused of starting the fatal fire that claimed the lives of his loved ones heads to court. Prosecutors say 23-year-old Lontray Clark was angry that his friend and ex-girlfriend were dating, that he allegedly threw a Molotov cocktail into the Austin neighborhood apartment where they were, sparking a fire that killed 4 people, including Smith's pregnant cousin and her young son.
It's an uphill journey, and the journey has not yet begun. The healing has not yet begun. We're a family that's hurting. We're a family that's sad. We're a family that's in pain.
Calling it a horrific crime and a brazen disregard for life, a Cook County judge showed Clark no mercy. Authorities arrested the 23-year-old Chicago man in downstate Springfield on Wednesday. He now faces murder, attempted murder, and aggravated arson charges along with dozens of additional felony counts. 5-year-old Jayceon Henry, his mother, 32-year-old Regina Brown Henry, who was 3 months pregnant, Gina's sister, Destiny Brown Henry, and a 76-year-old resident of the building all died. Several people were also injured, including Destiny's 4-year-old son, who remains in grave conditions. Prosecutors say Clark allegedly set the apartment building located in the 5200 block of West North Avenue on fire during the early morning hours of June 26th, after learning that his ex-girlfriend was dating his friend after seeing a selfie she posted. Authorities say Clark picked up his cousin, and the two went to a gas station where they filled up an antifreeze bottle with gasoline before heading to a convenience store where investigators say the suspect bought black clothing, a face mask, and a lighter. The defendant's cousin says they drove to the apartment where he says Clark started the fire and then admitted to him saying, "I just lit the house on fire."
No matter what happens with, the conviction and the arrest, they could never replace the lives that were lost.
Prosecutors say Clark threw out the clothes he was wearing at his grandfather's house. In court, Clark's public defender told the judge that there was no surveillance video of her client committing the crime. She added that although her client has served time in prison for a weapons violation, that he is not violent. Clark does have 2 outstanding warrants for resisting arrest. The court did grant an order of protection for the defendant's ex-girlfriend. Funeral arrangements are still pending for the victims of the fire. Meanwhile, Clark is due back in court July 14th.
Upon arrest, authorities seized Clark's cell phone, clothing items matching surveillance footage, and a vehicle linked to the gas station purchases. Forensic analysis later confirmed gasoline residue in the car's trunk. Clark was transported back to Cook County, where he was held in police custody for questioning before being officially charged. According to the arrest report, multiple witnesses identified Clark both from surveillance footage and from his previous threats to one of the victims. The Cook County State's Attorney's Office filed a total of 13 felony counts against Lontray Clark, based on the scope and severity of the crime. 4 counts of first-degree murder. These charges were applied for each of the 4 individuals who died in the fire: Brad Cummings, Regina Henry, Destiny Henry, and Jayceon Henry. 4 counts of murder during commission of a forcible felony. Under Illinois law, causing death during the commission of another serious felony, such as arson, can result in additional murder charges. The state used this to support conviction regardless of premeditated intent. 2 counts of aggravated arson causing bodily harm. These charges were tied to injuries sustained by survivors, including 4-year-old Kyle Henry, who was hospitalized in critical condition. 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder. These relate to the surviving residents who were allegedly targeted but managed to escape. 1 count of residential arson. This charge was levied for the deliberate act of setting fire to a dwelling known to be occupied. The totality of charges reflects both the number of victims and the multiple legal violations involved in the incident. The prosecution emphasized that each count represents a deliberate action taken to cause death or serious harm. Following his arrest, Lontray Clark was brought before a Cook County judge for an initial bail hearing. Prosecutors requested that he be held without bail, citing the premeditated nature of the crime, the suspect's flight risk, and the significant danger he posed to the community. The judge granted the request, and Clark remains in custody at Cook County Jail. The state's attorney's office highlighted the extensive evidence: surveillance footage, digital records, recorded confessions, and prior threats. Prosecutors argued that the incident demonstrated a calculated and brutal intent to destroy lives and inflict irreversible trauma.
The man charged with setting a deadly fire in Chicago's Austin neighborhood last month will be back in court tomorrow.
Lontray Clark, who remains detained, is charged with 19 felonies, including murder and arson. NBC5's Jen Shantz joins us in studio now, and we've learned new details this weekend about what led up to that fire. Jen.
That's right, Patrick. Kate, Lontray Clark, according to prosecutors, set an apartment building on fire June 26 after reportedly learning an ex-girlfriend inside was possibly dating his friend. Now, she survived the fire, but 4 people, including 5-year-old Jayceon Henry, did not. His mother, Regina Henry, her sister Destiny Henry, and Brad Cummings all died. None of them were involved in the dispute with Clark, who was arrested in Springfield after about 2 weeks on the run. In court, prosecutors say Clark was with his cousin the night of the fire. A social media post indicated an ex might be dating his friend. He was then seen on surveillance at a gas station filling a container with gasoline and later buying a face mask and a lighter. Prosecutors also claim he was seen on surveillance coming and going from a nearby alley, then seen without that container. His cousin reportedly telling investigators Clark, quote, banged his head on a center console and told him that he had just lit the house on fire. The judge calling this case horrific and ruling Clark will remain detained for now, citing he's a danger to the public. Clark is back before a judge tomorrow. This fire not only claiming those 4 lives, but hurting several other people and leaving them without a home. In the next 30 minutes, a statement from one of those victims' cousins, their reaction to learning Clark was arrested. Patrick, back to you.
Clark's first official court appearance took place on July 14, 2025. Where a formal reading of the charges was entered into court record. The judge ordered further psychological evaluation and scheduled a preliminary hearing for later in the month. If convicted on all charges, Clark faces multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. The case will proceed through the pretrial and trial phases over the coming months, with prosecutors indicating their intent to pursue the harshest penalty permissible under state law. In the days following the June 26, 2025 apartment fire on Chicago's West Side, the atmosphere in the Austin neighborhood shifted from shock to mourning. Community sidewalks filled with candles, posters, and stuffed animals placed in front of the charred remains of 5222 West North Avenue. Residents, friends, and strangers gathered for balloon releases, silent vigils, and prayer walks. One balloon carried the names of 4 lives lost: Brad Cummings, 76, Destiny Henry, 28, Regina Henry, 32 and pregnant, and her 5-year-old son, Jayceon. Family members spoke at these gatherings, calling for accountability. Regina and Destiny surviving relatives publicly demanded answers. Their grief was matched only by their resolve to see justice delivered. In interviews, they questioned how a known domestic dispute escalated into a quadruple fatality, and why nothing was done to prevent it. Destiny's actions the night of the fire, running back into the burning building to save her son, unaware he had already escaped, became a focal point of both sorrow and symbolic strength. Survivors of the fire gave first-hand accounts of the chaos. Some described waking up to smoke filling their apartments. Others recounted kicking out window screens and climbing down drain pipes with infants in their arms. One resident broke both ankles jumping from a second-floor window. The fire, which moved quickly through multiple ignition points, left little time for coordinated evacuation. In total, nearly 24 tenants were displaced, many with no belongings left. Elected officials and religious leaders condemned the act immediately. Alderman Emma mislabeled the fire an act of domestic terrorism, pointing not only to the number of lives lost, but to the premeditated nature of the crime. Reverend George Smith, Jr. of the West Side's Leaders Network stood beside the grieving families, demanding accountability and declaring the community would not rest until someone was held responsible. Before an arrest was made, local organizations, along with the Henry family, offered a $5,000 reward for information leading to the suspect. Community tip lines saw an influx of calls, and within days, investigators tracked the suspect, Lontray Clark, to Springfield, Illinois. Leaders credited the community's cooperation and vigilance in bringing attention to the case and accelerating the arrest timeline. Though an arrest was made, the local outcry continued. Residents and community figures pressed city officials about long-standing issues: poor fire infrastructure, limited mental health support, and a delayed emergency response. What started as mourning became a broader conversation about public safety failures and the systems that allowed such violence to unfold. The fire's severity raised several pressing questions from the public and media outlets. Chief among them, how effective was the emergency response? Reports show that fire crews responded within minutes, but many believe the building's outdated infrastructure made effective rescue efforts nearly impossible. Stairwells, the primary escape route, were engulfed in flames. The building lacked modern fire alarms, sprinklers, and fire-resistant doors. Questions were raised about inspection failures and whether code violations had gone unchecked. Attention also turned to potential warning signs. Regina Henry had reportedly been in a prior relationship with the accused. While not publicly documented as a domestic violence case, many are asking if previous threats or red flags were missed. Activists have pointed out the lack of preventive intervention in volatile domestic situations, especially those involving jealousy and control. Finally, community members want to know, could this have been prevented? Surveillance footage and digital communications reveal a clear escalation. The suspect obtained gasoline hours before the fire. He expressed anger over a social media post. The signs of intent were present, but no one intervened in time. Prosecutors have built a case centered on strong physical and digital evidence. Surveillance video places Lontray Clark at the scene carrying a gasoline container. Additional footage shows him entering the alley behind the complex just before the fire erupted. Investigators also obtained a digital confession. Clark was reportedly recorded admitting to setting the fire shortly after the crime occurred. The prosecution will argue that Clark acted with full premeditation and malicious intent. They intend to show that he planned the arson as a targeted act of retaliation after discovering that his ex-girlfriend was romantically involved with someone else, believed to be a mutual friend. By using multiple ignition points and starting the fire at the stairwells, prosecutors will argue that Clark intentionally blocked escape routes, increasing the fatal risk. They also plan to use victim impact statements to underscore the emotional toll of the crime, including the loss of an unborn child and the trauma endured by surviving children. The defense has not made public statements, but legal experts expect a strategy focused on mental health or diminished capacity. They may argue that Clark was not in a stable psychological state at the time of the incident. His emotional reaction to the social media post could be portrayed as a trigger for irrational behavior. Another likely strategy is to challenge the chain of custody and admissibility of digital evidence. If the defense can cast doubt on the surveillance footage or question the validity of the alleged confession, it may weaken the prosecution's case. Still, the sheer volume of evidence, including the gas purchase and travel logs, poses a significant challenge. Given the number of victims, the ages involved, including a child and an unborn fetus, and the apparent premeditation, prosecutors are expected to pursue the maximum penalty. The most likely outcome, if convicted, is a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The case may also spark legislative efforts. Chicago lawmakers and anti-violence advocates are already pushing for tougher arson penalties, mandatory domestic violence screenings during partner disputes, and improved apartment fire safety standards. Several questions remain unresolved. Was Clark acting alone? Surveillance footage only shows Clark, but some neighbors reported hearing multiple voices or gunshots during the incident. Forensic investigators recovered shell casings near the scene, prompting speculation about a possible secondary accomplice or distraction tactic. Did anyone know about his plans but fail to act? Given the suspect's communications in the hours before the fire, investigators are exploring whether any friends or contacts were aware of his intentions. If so, could early intervention have prevented the deaths? How did digital communication fuel the escalation? This case underscores how quickly rage can spread and intensify in the digital age. A single Snapchat photo and brief text exchange allegedly triggered a cascade of violent decisions. Law enforcement is examining the role of online behavior in modern crime escalation. Finally, is the justice system equipped to prevent similar tragedies? The system currently reacts to crimes after they happen, but many ask whether proactive measures, especially in domestic violence and fire code enforcement, could prevent them in the first place. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.